Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 8 of the Advantage Billionaires Bootcamp, where we are raising a new generation of problem solvers, creators, and empire builders. You being one of them, our major one at that. It's a powerful session. It's a powerful session we're going to be having today. And this is what we do, one session at a time. It's a 12-day event, right? Day 1 all the way down to day 8. Today happens to be day 8. Tonight, we're going to be having an awesome session. I promise you want to stick to this, right? Just connect, stay in, like, subscribe, and enjoy. Make sure you're learning. Make sure you're jotting down something because your business needs it more than you do. All right. Today we step into a studio with Startup Club, and our team is bold, real, and necessary. From idea to exit. From idea to exit. And the most common mistakes founders make. It's one thing you want to learn. All right. We have several millions of founders who get startups, launched. So many who end at ideation and don't eventually launch. What are those things that sets the people who succeed? Aside from the numerous failures, right? We're going to learn here how to go from idea to exit, to sell your business at the multi-billions you're aiming for. All right. We know the starting business is more than just an idea. It's more than having just an idea. It's about execution, learning fast, avoiding painful mistakes, and knowing how to structure for long-term success and even exit, right? In case you're not building a legacy business. Our speaker tonight is someone who has walked this path, obviously. He has gotten his own startup, Slide Bean, and has been able to experience success on that, right? He studied this deeply and mentored several other founders, right? He runs a YouTube platform. I love to give credit to Startup Club, all right? In your leisure time, go search them up, look them up. They have awesome content on their page, right? So because we're gonna be having him, not live, we're gonna be having him teach us how to move from idea to exit, how to avoid the most common pitfalls that founders make. If you're thinking about launching a startup, you're in the right place, right? If you're already building something, or maybe you failed before and you're looking to rise again, this session is 100% for you, all right? So replay this as often as you'd want to, and make sure you're taking notes. Whatever questions you have, drop it in the chat box. We'll either address them tonight or in the next session, which probably should take place tomorrow by 8 p.m. And until then, you might just hear that idea that shifts your whole trajectory. All right. So don't snooze. Don't snooze. You snooze, you lose. All right. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. So quickly, we're going to be switching over to him. You don't want to miss this. Enjoy.
Typical startup. Actually, honestly, scratch that, because this is a timeline of an ideal startup journey, but few startup stories are ideal. 12 years after starting Slidebeat, we're probably somewhere around this area, but I sat down the other day to talk to two founders who've been through that side of the process. Starting a company is by all means like a life decision, and you shouldn't get into it unless you're absolutely prepared.
My name is Kaya, and I'm the CEO here at Slide.
For the pain that will be seeing it through. So I want to break down what I've learned in the 15 years since I started my first company, and with the help of Adrisio and Devrim stories, help you avoid making the same mistakes that we've made along the way. So let me start by focusing on this section. And to keep things simpler, let's just use a straight arrow, even though, remember, it's anything but. Now, navigating this section of the timeline is probably the most well-documented part of building a startup, and yet we keep seeing the same mistakes again and again. In team forming, the biggest problem I see is that a founder with an idea tries to recruit people to execute on his vision. And that's not how starting a tech company works. You want to have some shared ownership represented not just in stock, but also in the company vision.
I always think that it's better to start brainstorming with your teammates. Typically, one member of the team has the kernel of an idea, they'll become the company. But it's always best, before that gets too solidified, to discuss it with your teammates so that everyone buys in and gets ownership.
That's Michael Seibel, by the way, one of the partners at Y Combinator, co-founder of Justin TV, aka Twitch now, and current board member at Reddit. Creating a team is a test in and in itself. Like, you need to have a network, you need to be easy to work with, and you need people to see the value that you provide. It's a big red flag that your first MVP was built by an agency, or even worse, to raise money to do that. It means that you couldn't find anybody else who believed in this product or in this company.
2 to 4 co-founders, at least 50% engineering. They all have to have somewhat around a year's worth of money in the bank, but that doesn't mean a year's worth of money living in a one-bedroom apartment, like in a high-rise. That means a year's worth of money eating ramen noodles and being very poor. And everyone has to have quit their jobs.
Funding requires a show of commitment and a leap of faith. When you're younger, living in your parents' basement or eating ramen noodles is a real option, but that's not an option as you get older. Now, I'd say it's perfectly fair to do some freelancing during this time, as long as it's clear that your main gig is your startup. Like, don't sell yourself short on how much you charge. In the end, you're looking to be paid very well for a few hours, so you can use the rest of your time to build your company. Make sure that you count the percentage of billable time and your time off as you calculate your ideal rates. I always use this calculator to make sure that I'm not selling myself short. I'll link it below. Still, having some funding, at least to get the company going, is also a bit of a test that you need to pass. It's easy to find seemingly crazy rounds of funding, and many of those rounds are indeed crazy, but check out who those founders are. They have a track record, they have connections, maybe even previous companies under their belt. Raising money at pre-seed is really, really hard. Harder than any other round, to be honest, but you have to convince people purely on your character and your experience, but you don't have any metrics to talk about. Now, another point with funding, please remember that money is just a means to an end. And it's very easy to run out. It's easy to think funding is the goal because we have to spend so much of our time in the early stages thinking about raising money, but it's not. Now, with pre-seed funding, be very careful with convertible notes. We made a whole other video about that. Now, another tip, don't get caught up on advisors. Most advisors feel very valuable when you're alone and you need second opinions, but that should come from your co-founders and from your team. Don't be so quick about giving advisors equity. Actually, don't give them equity. Go with stock options and make them earn them. Now, the first couple of years of a company are grinding, and advisors don't tend to be very useful for grinding.
Where most companies will screw up is on team. This is the second place most companies will screw up. How can you get something into people's hands? I can't tell you, I've done this many times myself. The number one piece of advice we give to YC companies before they launch is launch. I can't tell you how many people will just sit there and iterate before users ever see anything. So when I ask a company how long it's going to take to launch, I always just ask them, why does it take longer than 2 months? Like, I don't care what it is. I don't care if they haven't started yet. You should be able to build something in 2 months and get it in front of users. This is just saying it one more time. You're nothing until you launch.
Now, there are some caveats to this. Not all companies can launch without funding, but many do. Like, I normally group companies into regular tech startups, regular, and R&D companies. Regular tech startups are your typical SaaS tool, your software, your platform as a service, and those can normally be built by piggybacking of existing APIs and infrastructure. This is in the 90s, you don't need to buy servers anymore. R&D startups are the exception, and those might be hardware products or deep R&D technologies that need years of development before seeing the light of day, like building a new LLM. Like, I would assume that if you're building that, your team is an expert in the field and you're not looking to hire them with your round of funding. By the way, if your business doesn't qualify as either of those two, what I would call a non-tech company, this is maybe not the video for you. Like agencies, dev shops, Shopify stores, you guys are startups, you guys are using tech, but for the purposes of this discussion, you are not a tech startup. These two categories, R&D and tech startups, can get away with, honestly, with massive rounds of funding, but the expectation from investors is that you will see these companies through to an exit. There's no posing as a tech startup to then decide that you want to grow slow or that you don't want to sell your company. If you choose this path, the only way to make your investors happy is with aggressive and, yes, very risky growth. Now, I said before, there are a lot of resources to navigate this part of the process. A fair share of those were made by us, which now you've discovered, but this kit by HubSpot is a pretty incredible complement. It has a suite of tools inside, including that hourly rate calculator I showed you earlier, but my favorite was the ebook Ultimate Guide to Becoming an Entrepreneur section, which has tons of insights and identifying and debunking ideas, different approaches, and building your first MVP. You can also download that for free. Link in the description or this QR code. After companies reach pre-seed, whether you have money or not, the biggest mistake that companies make is failing to budget enough money to get to the next round, to get to seed. Like, getting stuck between rounds is really bad, and I know because it happened to us. In SaaS, a seed round happens ideally at about $10,000 to $30,000 in MRR, and a Series A round is at around $2 million in ARR. Now, if you run out of money halfway, you'll be in a very bad position to access any funding because nobody wants to put money in a sinking ship. When you're pre-seed, you can raise money on the dream and on the vision, but once you have a product in the market, the expectation from investors is traction. I can't count how many founders fail because they spend their savings in building a product without ensuring that they have enough oxygen to launch it or to iterate on it or to be able to get their first customers. Now, we got stuck between seed and Series A because we were told that we needed 18 months of runway, and we did. I stretched our round to 18 months. But when we were about to run out of money, we had gotten to about $1 million in annual run rate. So we were too early to get through the door to the Series A investors. Okay, so back to the team. Let me talk about teams between pre-seed and seed. Like, even if you're funded, this team is taking a massive risk by working with you. You have to acknowledge that. These guys may have a more decent salary than the founders, but they need to believe in the company almost as much as you do. Like, they should be entrepreneurs too. Maybe they didn't dare to start a company on their own yet, but they need to be at a point in their lives when they're ready for the crazy work and honestly to do a bit of everything. I think that must be compensated with stock options. This early team will shape your company in more ways than you can ever imagine. So my suggestion is be transparent with them about where the company is. I always believe that over communicating is better. If you need to cut them because you're running out of money, don't let that be a surprise to the team. Not everyone can live and work with that uncertainty, and that's fine. Some people are meant to be employee number 42, not employee number 3. Now, at this stage, you should have a perfect grip on your budget. You should know how much runway you have, always, and you should always make decisions based on this. We have a team division dedicated to building and keeping our customers' financial models updated against their books if you're interested in some help. The financial model is a tool that you should be using on a weekly basis because every decision should be budgeted. Every hire should be made only after you understand how it affects your runway. More info about that stuff here, if you're interested. Related to that, remember that funding rounds take months to close, especially at the early stage. During the first 3 months of that process, the founder doing the fundraise will be out. Like, you will not have time to do anything else. Your company needs to be ready to exist and keep growing with one of the co-founders essentially missing. And it's not easy. Another common mistake I see is what I call unexplainable growth. So I talked to this company the other day. They were doing about $500,000 in ARR, but a lot of their growth came from campaigns that a third-party agency ran. So let's break this apart. External agencies for specific projects are okay. Maybe a UX rehaul, maybe PR, maybe even sprinting a feature. But the core competencies need to be in-house. You can't have a marketing agency without an in-house growth hacker. And this became a deadly problem for this company because as they approached their Series A, investors asked, well, what are your most successful campaigns? And what are their unit economics? And they just couldn't answer the question. Series A rounds are raised on metrics, and most of the capital will go to growth. You need to be able to prove that you understand where that capital will be deployed to accelerate that growth. The Series A and Series B pitch decks that I've advised on, they're all super metrics heavy. It's all about showing that you know where to put your money to keep growing fast. Now, another common oversight on Series A rounds is how expensive they are. You should prepare yourself for a $50,000 to $100,000 bill on legal fees, and that only gets worse as rounds get bigger. Okay, so now we've reached a point where our company hasn't gotten to yet. So as I mentioned, I spoke to Devrim and Adricio, 2 founders that recently sold their companies to Skillshare and to MasterCard respectively, so they can share some of the stuff on the mistakes that come as you get to the end side of that timeline. Now, Devrim raised a $2 million pre-seed round and an $8 million seed round.
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I raised money before. I've never seen those valuations. I've never seen people just piling up to give you money and trying to squeeze each other out of the deal. Like, one investor comes and says, I will do the, triple the valuation, more money and things like that.
Which sounds good. Lots of money, little dilution, but remember, funding is a means to an end. What happens after you raise $8 million at a $40 million valuation, let's say? Like, the next round has to be over $100 million. And it's hard to justify that if you don't have the traction. Lucky for Devrim, Skillshare was already looking at them.
Well, when we started SuperPeer in 2020, the entire company signed up. That was all the way back then that we knew that they were looking at us. In 2023, by checking how much more work do we need to do to actually get to a point where we can justify our valuations.
Now, in case of Adricio, it was his Series B conversations that triggered this whole acquisition move.
In 2020, we were raising our Series B. I was out in the Valley and raising our Series B, and then the pandemic happened. So my wife and I escaped San Francisco and went to the Dominican Republic and started doing a Series B from my wife's mother's house. MasterCard, we also have some kind of relationship with them as well, but nothing formal. When they approached us initially, it was initially as an investment, that's part of our B, but that conversation quickly grew to acquisition. And we actually said no, maybe 4 times.
From a founder that has not sold any startups ever, feels like selling it is kind of like the end game. Why would you say no to these 4 first offers?
I think the first factor is where you are and where you think you can be, right? So startups hit some pivotal points in their trajectory, and I think we thought that we were about to hit one. So we thought we had like a massive opportunity in our hands. I was going through a lot of turmoil internally at the company. We had parted ways with one of my co-founders, and I was temporarily fired, right? So there was just a lot of friction internally, right? And I always tell founders, your co-founder relationship is your home. Like when that's broken, it's really hard to do anything else well, because that's where you go for solace and some degree of calm.
This is maybe a good moment to talk about the different type of startup exits. Every deal is different, but we can probably group them into these buckets. You'll read about all kinds of exits in the news, but they'll never say what kind of acquisition it was. But here's a guide I made for you to catch some of the clues. Acquihires will never ever reveal the price that was paid for the buy. So that's the first clue. The other clue is that the product is usually shut down immediately or only months after the buy. Normally, the acqui-hired company was struggling, running out of money, maybe they didn't get enough traction to raise the next round, or their product wasn't growing much. You can usually tell because their team was shrinking. Now, acqui-hired companies are usually running out of money, which means they're not profitable, and this usually happens for small startups, say under 30 employees, and the reason why they're called acqui-hires is because what the buyer is really doing is just recruiting a fully formed, trained, and proven tested team. Now, I know a couple companies that were acquired by Google, and each team member had to go through Google's usual interview process for new employees. Some got in, some didn't. Needless to say, nobody makes a lot of money in an acquisition.
Typically, the sellers don't make too much money in these acqui-hire situations. And the reason is that they are not great exits. They are essentially a graceful way for the startup team to transition back into the corporate world, secure a high-paying job without the stain of a failed startup.
Now, this is Attila Hardy. He helps startups with their M&A. He might help us sell Slightbee one day. And he certainly knows more about this than I do.
In these acqui-hire situations, the valuation is essentially the perceived value of the team. How much is this team worth to acquire for the buyer? And this can range anywhere from $100K per capita or per team member to $2 million, depending on a lot of factors. So it's very hard to pin down the exact valuation because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
The other extreme of this spectrum is the rockstar acquisitions. That's your Instagram, your Slack, your 22 billion WhatsApp sale. We made a video about it. These are all rockstar deals where both companies are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the merger of these companies just makes a lot of sense. Now, they can spare no expense hiring every expert in the world for this whole acquisition process, and the people involved in these acquisitions most certainly don't watch this channel to find advice, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. We cover those in our main channel, so you should check that out. But here in the middle is where things get tricky.
So the first bucket is financial buyers. These are typically companies who buy businesses for their future cash flows because they want to create a return to their own investors. They typically don't have a strategic or synergic angle that strategic buyers have.
Now, these financial buyers are looking to monetize the company for profits. They're maybe consolidating the tech support or the marketing with other companies in their portfolio so that they can maximize those profit margins. So there's no strategic value for them in the company. It's just really about the profits and how much of that they can collect as profits and dividends.
These buyers value companies based on their future cash flows, and they typically apply a profitability multiple, EBITDA being the most common one, and the multiple can be anywhere from 3 times EBITDA to 10 times EBITDA, depending on a bunch of different factors.
Now, comparing the dollar, like the exit value for one of these acquisitions versus a rockstar exit sucks. That's not what we signed up for. But think about it. Investors essentially are paying you for those profits in advance. If the company isn't growing, how else are they going to make money from it? So they have little regard for the team or the technology or the brand. It is very much a monetary transaction.
Now, the other type of acquisitions are strategic acquisitions, which are similar to the Rockstar acquisitions, just smaller in scale. When a strategic deal happens, it happens because the buyer sees some extra value in what you've built that is not apparent to a financial buyer. Maybe that's the niche that you're in that they want to enter into. Maybe that's the customers you have that they want to start cross-selling their own products to. Maybe it's the technology that you've built that will shorten their own path of getting to a desired outcome.
Now, strategic acquisitions feel closer to what I was sold on when I became a founder. I very much started Slidebean with the intention of selling the company, but a buyer for us would need to be someone who values not just our tech, but the product and also the brand we've created. Now, both Superpeer and Arcus were strategic acquisitions, but not Rockstar enough to polish their acquisition price, so they land somewhere in the middle of this chart.
If we do this, it's life-changing for a lot of us, not just the founders. You have a culmination of 7 years of pain with a few months of really intense pain.
Now, one thing I had no idea about was how long exits would take and how painful they would be and how much work they would require.
How long did it take?
12 months and some. It feels like your life is on pause. At the same time, both parties can exit the deal. That freaking sucks. That's also, some, like, on the back of your head, you're thinking they can walk out of this. Like, if something happens on their next board meeting, someone says something, or another economic downturn, like anything can happen, and then the buyer leaves the table. You had already said no to other buyers, and your team is already like a little bit like on the edge, and you have to manage all this stuff also for yourself.
We wound up kind of like breaking the team down, and we would do like our day job through the day, and at night, like late at night, like 8-9 p.m. at night, we would meet every night and go over the list, and this is what you have, and we did a stand-up daily.
Then there are investors. You're trying to make the deal that works for everyone. The worst part is to collect documents if you're missing something from an ex-employee. They usually are not, you are not on the top of their minds. I mean, we always had good relationships with our ex-employees, because literally, like, you just get stupid questions. In a way, you cannot say these are stupid questions. They are stupid questions, but you have to answer them. M&A is designed for both lawyers to make sure that everything is happening exactly legally.
The M&A process is often designed to put companies in a position where the buyer has so much power over the company, so much money has been spent already, so much time has been put in, that there's honestly no way out but completing the sale. One of the founders I spoke to, who couldn't go on record, told me that in the last few stages of the deal, the buyer told them that they had to drop their offer significantly because of some market condition bullshit. And at the time, the company was in a position where they just couldn't back out. They couldn't say no.
How was team morale through this?
Your team starts to feel like, should I look for another job? Should I commit 100% here, or should I be like, one leg out? It was dreadful. Not Skillshare's fault, of course.
Devrim had a lot of thoughts on how to manage the team uncertainty through that process, so go check out our full video on exits if you're interested in learning more. And don't forget to grab HubSpot's free entrepreneurship kit here. Catch you on the next one.
Hi guys, I'm trying to set up my I've been trying to set up the quality of my camera, but so far this is what we've been able to come up with. Anyways, I hope you learned a whole lot, because I was taking notes. So quickly we'll rush into the question and answer session. I sincerely want to say thank you so much to Mr. Jose for taking this session. Idea to exit. All right. We have questions from the audience that I would love to read out, right? And then possibly we'll be able to get answers to these questions. Okay. So the first question is most people think their startup idea is unique. Should founders worry more about originality or execution? Should founders worry more about originality or execution? Pardon the quality for today, please, guys. We'll work it out to make it better probably by from tomorrow. All right. So the question is, should founders worry more about execution or its exclusivity, how unique your idea is? All right. And the answer we have to that, you have to give me a sec. The answers we have to that, I'll just read in a bit. Without execution, you don't have a business. I don't know if you heard the founder of YC, which is a co-founder, one of the board of directors on Twitch, say this. If Facebook didn't start, you wouldn't know Facebook stands out from the rest. If the companies you know of, YouTube, the Amazon, if they didn't start, you wouldn't know if it stands out. The idea just stays in your head and probably in the head of your team. And that's not how you get paid. That's not how you get your money. You're solving a problem. So start solving the problem. Then we can worry about exclusivity. We can worry about how unique it is. All right. If you do not get started, nobody knows who you are. And most definitely, we love them, don't want to know who you are up until you prove to them that you're worthy of you're worth their patronage, you're worth their audience, their attention. So focus more on execution so that people can know you're a thing before you talk about standing out. We've had companies that imitated several other unicorns, all right? And from imitation, they got to a phase where they could now build their own story. All right. So it's always best to get started, to execute. From your standpoint of execution, you can now focus on uniqueness. All right. The next question: how can a founder validate market potential fast? I believe while we were going through the video, I could pick that. What's the fastest way a young founder can tell if their idea has real market potential without wasting in the stream yesterday? Talk to your target users. If 10 strangers are willing to put their money down for your idea, it's valid enough. All right. Once you're able to get 10 people to commit a certain amount to whatever it is you're doing, you're obviously ahead. All right. Just get 10 people. Start with one person, get the second person, the third, the fourth, 10 people who can say, hello, I like what you're doing. From what you've explained to me, I'm willing to put $1. I'm willing to put $5. I'm willing to put 10,000 naira. I'm willing to put $1 million. No matter the price. The price doesn't quite matter now. You're not trying to sell to them. You just want to get their approval. Get your first 10 clients. Or you go on pre-sale. We don't have the product, but this is what the product offers. This is the problem it solves. All right. Are you willing to pay for this? If you had the opportunity to get this solved this way, would you pay for it? Ask 10 strangers that question. Probably 10 friends, 10 strangers. And once you get their honest opinion, and they can tie money to that opinion, you're head on, right? You are so ahead. So that's pretty much it. That's an answer. I hope that answers your question, sir. So the next question we have is, should every founder start with a co-founder, or is solo foundership underrated in the startup space, right? Is it should every founder have a co-founder, or you go just alone? All right. So my answer to this is, solo founders can succeed, but it's going to be hard. It's so hard running solo. All right. It's harder and lonelier, I tell you. A co-founder can balance your weaknesses. Let's say you're good at coding, but you're not good at marketing, which is most often predominant, in the tech space. A lot person can be so good at doing the work but not selling the products. So if you have a co-founder that's good at sales, you make your stuff, and then you make your stuff, and then you get someone to help you sell it. All right, to help you sell it, and it's awesome. It's awesome when you have someone that can, make up for your weaknesses. All right, that's why you get co-founders. So that's pretty much. Now for the next question, what are the top 3 early startup killers? What are the 3 most common mistakes that kill startups in the first year, and how can founders avoid them? Now, I like this question you asked. It's a very interesting question, I'll tell you. It said, what are the major, killers for a startup? What kills startups faster? That's literally what you're asking. What are the 3 major things that kill startups? And I'll tell you what they are. Literally what's in the video. All right. And yes, it's a recording. We couldn't have him live, so we had the recording. Yes, sir. We have 2 people who have asked that already. So the first is building before validating. I said that in the stream yesterday. If you were live, you would have heard it. You could probably refer back to it and then listen to the whole thing. Right? Building before validating. If you do not have a market that's interested in what you're selling out, what you're putting out, right? You go selling. Most of the times they'll turn it down because they're not interested. All right, they are not interested. So that's what you should focus on. Validate your solution. Validate your solution. Once you have your solution validated, all right, you then get started. Once you have the solution validated, you get started. All right, that's pretty much what I want you to do. Validate your solution, right? And the second one is hiring too fast. This we see occur several times. You're hiring too fast. You make your first 100K, you're getting 10 more people into the business. Even when they don't necessarily need, the business doesn't necessarily need 10 more people. You get so many people and you pack what you should call a profit is now used to service the company. What you should call a profit, right? And celebrate over and used to scale, probably scale your operations, you go hire more people, and you kill the business. All right. You should grow as your business grows, not faster than your business. All right. It's okay if your business is growing faster than you, it takes time, then you adjust and get back. But if you're growing faster than your business, you burn capital, you burn cash, and that's going to be a problem for you because your business survives on cash. And if you do not have the cash to carry the business along, your business will leave you. That's literally what will happen. All right. So those are one of the major things. The final one is avoiding feedback or refusing to pivot, right? Avoiding feedback, very important. No company, no business grows without feedback, all right? When your customer complains about A or B or C, maybe the quality has gone down, or this thing, I've been enjoying it and I'm not getting it again, all right? You've been solving my problem in this way and it's been so good, but right now, that's lacking, and you avoid that feedback. You're not doing anything about it. With time, your customer will no longer complain. And they'll probably just look for someone that solves that problem, that does that thing that they complained about, right? That acts on it. And what you find out happens is they lose interest, they leave you, they go for someone that listens. So it's one thing you should avoid. Never let the customer get frustrated. All right. So try your best to take in the feedback and act on it, especially when it's favorable to your business. All right. Especially when it's favorable to your business. I'd like to now go straight to the fifth question. What the person wrote here is, how do you advise founders to balance speed with quality when launching your first MVP, your first minimum viable product? I tell you, should be focused more on its speed. You will never achieve 100% efficiency. You will never build the best thing first. It's your first. All right. It's your first. You're prone to errors, obviously. There's so many things you won't get right. It's your first. No child ever walks and starts running from the first step. You're built to fail at your first. So you learn and iterate. So it's more of speed than quality. Just get it out there. Let people criticize it. Let people say, this is what's wrong. I don't like this. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And then you take notes of that feedback and iterate. You know, you work on this, you work on this, you work on that. And when you put it out there again, they're like, oh, he did this, he did this, he did that. Gets more people in. And they criticize again, and then you iterate. And before you know, you're there. So quality doesn't come on day one. That's why you need to, as fast as possible, get your product out there, get your solution out there, get people to know what you do and become interested. All right. So the next question, how do you advise founders? What's one painful mistake you've personally seen a startup make that could have been avoided? And what lesson came out of it? One painful mistake, right, that you have seen, me personally have seen so many startups make, right, is solving a problem that people can live without. People can live with, Which is people spend so much money to build a solution for a problem people don't send. What's the concept behind the doorman? You go to hotels and see a doorman there. What's the concept behind the doorman? It's a waste of money. Someone just opens the door when you want to walk in. All right. You're paying him every single day, to week, to month. What's the point? Right? There's no concept behind that. When electric doors were created, I mean, that solves that problem, right? Completely. It's unnecessary, right? A lot of people, their businesses are like the doormen at all these hotels. You get very unnecessary, very, very unnecessary. They just create things for creating sake, and it's wrong. You have to validate that people want your problem. There are people suffer the problem and they want your solution before you go into making it. So you don't spend 6 months, spend so much money. I had one do over 20K, invested in this, and nobody wanted that. Oh, yes, they had the problem. Yes, it existed, but they didn't want it solved, at least at that time. Plus, the solution was way more expensive than people would go for. All right. They didn't want it solved. We've all heard of Neuralink, but I don't think that's coming anytime soon. Why? Nobody wants their head open for a chip to be implanted. We don't have any need that's tied to that. All right. So if Elon decides, okay, tomorrow I'm going to close down Tesla, I'm going to close down Starlink, I'm going to invest in Neuralink, it's most definitely going to hit a rock. Even if it's the world's wealthiest man, we don't want our heads open yet. Yet, I said, probably we get to a point where that's a need. But for now, people don't want that. So a founder should be able to see where his business is, who his market audience are, whose target audience are, and how to reach them so he can build a solution that will invite these guys. All right. So I believe that answers your question. The next question we have there, at what point should a founder start thinking about building systems, teams, and letting go of full control? At what point should a founder start thinking about building systems, and then delegating? As I wouldn't say as soon as possible, though, although I'm tempted to. All right. Your business has to attain a certain level of balance. Your business has to attain a certain level of balance. If you got started, you've made your first sale, your business has gotten to a point where it's getting revenue, you can afford to delegate, then you delegate. But if you've not gotten to product market fit, people do not know whether they want you. You giving out that responsibility may affect your quality. And people don't even know if they want you yet. So it's going to be a hard pick. All right. So you need to attain a certain level of balance before you start delegating and outsourcing. And you outsource the ones that you need but are not urgent. They're important but not urgent. The ones that are important but not urgent. you outsource those ones. If it's urgent and important, you trade it yourself. Okay, it's a quadrant. Probably think Phil, I'll drop the link in the bio. You have important and urgent, you have important and not urgent, you have urgent and not important, and you have not urgent and not important. All right. The ones that's important and urgent, you treat. The ones that are important and not urgent, you delegate. All right. The ones that are not important but urgent, right? You see how best to get someone close to do this, probably your co-founder or part of the business. And then ones that are not urgent and not important, you delegate completely. Okay, that's not your business. Okay, so just focus on what moves the money needle for your company, and you grow, you make progress. I promise you. So we have two more questions to go. The first questions, the question, okay. When you see a startup stagnating at early traction, what's usually missing in their growth engine? Wow, this was a tactical question. I'd say when you see a startup stagnating early traction, probably you'll be running for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you're still at 100 users and 10 customers, right? You've only made 100 sales, or maybe you make 50 sales a month, and you'll be running for a bit, just burning cash, not hitting break even. What's usually missing in their growth engine? What's usually missing in their growth engine? Most of the times is poor messaging or weak product market fit. Either people don't get what you offer, it's not painful enough for them to pay for it. Still drives back to the points I had initially. If it's not painful enough for people to pay for it, they won't. If your product doesn't hurt them, the problem doesn't hurt them enough that they want a solution, they won't pay for it, no matter how dicey your product is. All right. And then if you've not educated them enough to want the product, they don't know if the solution is for them. They don't know if what you're offering is for them. All right. So on one hand, you have people who are suffering and they don't necessarily want the solution. They don't want to get out of it yet. Or the second hand is they do not know what you're selling. You've not educated your audience enough. It balances out. So once you're able to cancel out with the education, maybe you double down on people in the niche and they value what you've created so much so they want it. It's a pain point, a bleeding pain point. All right. So that's it. And then we've got two more questions. And this one says, when should founders think about exits? Yes. When should founders think about exits? When should founders think about exit? What's the best time for founders to think about exit? I tell you, from the day one, from when you start to build your business, start asking yourself questions like, when do I want to exit? Why am I building my business? How long do I want this to run? Do I want to do this for the rest of my life? How long will I solve this problem? Right? The more specific you are, the faster you get along with it. All right. Let's say you're creating a solution, it's a transportation solution, and you say, okay, fine, this business I'm building, I want to build it to $100 billion. And I want to get this to 20 countries. All right. Now, how do I get this to 20 countries? I'll break that down. That's how you go building your business. Okay. So you need to make that decision from the onset, from day one. Okay. That's what you need to do from day one, as soon as possible. Day one. Not because you sell early, though. Not only because it sharpens how you build, as I said before. You build systems to back what you've already decided on doing. You track metrics and design for transferability, right? It's not a business that you want to hold on to forever. Now, this is totally dependent on the founder. Some businesses are what's the word now? Some businesses are legacy businesses, all right? Like the Berkshire Hathaway, the Microsoft, companies like that. They are businesses that they transfer to their children. Who wants to stay for a long time in the hands of the founder. That's understandable. But if your business is not like that, you're building to exit. So you start thinking from day one. Design for transferability, acquire buy growth, clarity, and clean books. Very emphasis on clean books. Whoever is buying the business wants to know how profitable it is. They need information from you. while you're running. You need to start documenting these things. All right. And finally, all right, finally, what's the final question? If you had a 60-second roadmap from idea to exit, what would that look like? That's actually asking me to summarize every single thing we've been talking about for the past 40 minutes. And I'll say it. All right. Number one, start with the bleeding pain. You will save yourself 60 to 80% of the problems startups face when you start with a bleeding pain. It has to be a bleeding pain point from the end of your customer. Customer needs to want a solution. They need to want it so bad that they're jumping at you with their money. Start with the bleeding pain points. The second, validate with 10 users. Start with 10. Get 10 people to tell you this is good and I want it before you go creating the business. And once you get that validation, build your minimum viable product. Note, it's a minimum viable product. Get it out there. Get your minimum viable products out there. Get your MVP out there. It may not be so good, it may not be so awesome, but get it out there. All right? Get it out there. So the next thing, launch and iterate fast. Launch and iterate fast. Start making, use the feedback you're getting. Use the feedback you're getting. Every single day as you're getting the feedback, start, using it to make some dents into the system you already have. Tweak some things. All right. You don't want to waste time to make that happen. You get. So you don't miss customers. So you can acquire more new ones. All right. Grow to 50 or even 100 paying users. Grow your user base pretty much. Right. Grow your user base. Get to 100, get to 1,000, get to 10,000. Grow as fast as possible, as soon as possible. Right. Grow your user base. Grow community. Now, having a community pays so much because you can launch several other products and they're interested in it because you have people you can reach out to, right? You're able to get feedback, you're able to get information across to them because you're in a community. So build a user base, build a customer base, build your community. And there are many ways to do this, right? Many platforms. We'll probably talk about that in the future videos, right? So build your user base. Very, very important, all right? And then build a small team. Nowadays with AI, there's not necessarily a need for people that much. You don't need too many people. There were times where before you launch, you need at least 200 persons to work for you. And then as you scale, you're scaling to 1,000, 2,000 persons. But now you can run big businesses. 11 Labs runs with about 20-something persons. 11 Labs is a multi-billion-dollar company. They still run with about 20-something persons. The remaining work is outsourced. All right. So if they can, why can't you? Build a small team. Systematize operations. Very important. If you don't have a system or structure, so many things are going to go wrong. So many things are going to go wrong, I promise you. Because you can't build what you don't measure. You can't increase what you don't measure. If you don't measure it, it won't grow. So you need systems, right? Especially for tasks that are repetitive. You need to be able to automate them. Build systems, systematize your operations. So in the morning, this is what we do. At noon, this is what we do. Before we close, this is what we do. And we run from this time to this time, like an office would. There's a reason these guys have this system in place. There's a reason they have this culture in place. Right? It helps you run a company. It helps you show up every day. It helps you in things like this. Don't miss it. Build systems, right? And then hit recurring revenue milestone. Yeah, I forgot to add this. You need to have revenue milestones. If you're aiming for the $1 billion mark, as you are, you want to be the advantage billionaire. You want to be a billionaire, right? That's what we're training here. You need to have milestones that lead to that. Your first 100K, first million, you get to 10 million, to 100 million, to a billion. You need to have these milestones. Set them, write it down. All right. By this month, I want to have this. 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 By this year, year 1, year 2, year 3. These are my plans for year 3. These are my plans for year 5. Break it down and then write out actionable plans to getting there. So it's no longer just a prayer request or prayer point. All right. These are the things you necessarily need to do to grow. Very, very important. Very important. And finally, last but not the least, exit or scale while funding. Scale until you get to where you can exit. All right. Don't stay there forever, especially for a business that experiences shifts every now and then. Okay. Start conversations with potential partners or companies that can acquire you and exit on time. Don't stay too long. Yahoo is one story about a company that's had to exit eventually. Had to be forced out of the company, but they had an opportunity to sell for way more than they were sold for because they weren't able to spot the bloom season where they got to the peak, right? So once you're growing, you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've hit my goals, I'm done. You exit, right? So with this said, thank you so much for joining today's session. Thank you so much. I mean, it's always an awesome time with my viewers here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for staying till the end. I appreciate it so much. All right, this is where we drop the curtain for today. We appreciate for the whole. We apologize for all the holdbacks and inconsistencies in quality. We're working on that, and we promise we're going to bring you the best we can. All right, which is the best in the world, obviously. And I enjoy that you focus, do you execute, act fast, act now. All right. The only benefit of the information you're getting here is if you use it. All right. So get started. Your business needs this. Your business needs that. Act fast. All right. Thank you so much for joining once again. Till tomorrow should be day 9. You don't want to miss it. All right. You don't want to miss it. I promise you. So till then, cheers.
This is a timeline of a typical startup. Actually, honestly,